Gilgamesh, a king. Gilgamesh, a king at Uruk. He tormented his subjects. He made them angry. They cried out aloud, "Send us a companion for our king. Spare us from his madness." Enkidu, a wild man from the forest, entered the city. They fought in the temple. They fought in the streets. Gilgamesh defeated Enkidu. They became great friends, Gilgamesh and Enkidu at Uruk. The new friends went out into the desert together, where the great bull of heaven was killing men by the hundreds. Enkidu caught the bull by the tail. Gilgamesh struck him with his sword. They were victorious. But Enkidu fell to the ground, struck down by the gods, and Gilgamesh wept bitter tears, saying, "He who was my companion through adventure and hardship is gone forever." 4,000 years ago, two men who share no language, no culture, no framework for understanding each other, thrown together by forces neither of them fully controls. They fight a monster. One of them dies. And the one who survives carries the story forward for 4 millennia until a starship captain recites it aloud beside a fire on an alien planet to a dying man who finally, in his last moments, understands. This isn't coincidence. This is what myth does. It survives. It travels. It finds the next vessel. Today, we're going to trace exactly how the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest story humanity ever wrote down, became the structural blueprint for one of Star Trek's most celebrated episodes, beat for beat, image for image. And by the end of this, you won't be able to watch Darmok the same way again. Thank you for your patience waiting for me to present this video. This one, I'm using static images rather than video clips. Storytelling is repetitive, not because writers are lazy, because the myths that survive they're the ones encoding something true about human experience. And truth doesn't change just because the costume does. The pattern we're examining today is one of the oldest in the record. Two champions from incompatible worlds cannot speak to each other. A higher power forces them into shared danger. They fight something neither could defeat alone. The bond formed in that struggle becomes the only language they need. And the monster, or part of it, ends up in the sky where it watches over the story forever. That's Gilgamesh and Enkidu. That's also Picard and Dathon. And the writers of Darmok either knew exactly what they were doing or the myth knew through them. Both answers are interesting. Let's walk through the 4 beats. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, you have 2 figures who represent opposite poles of human experience. Gilgamesh is the king of Uruk, 2/3 divine, builder of walls, ruler of the greatest city in the ancient world. He is civilization in its most concentrated form, powerful, urban, governed by law and hierarchy. Enkidu is his inverse, shaped from clay by the goddess Eru, raised in the wilderness among animals, a man of pure instinct with no experience of city, language, or social contract. He runs with the gazelles. He has never seen a wall. They don't speak just different languages. They represent different modes of being entirely. Now, Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 2, 1991. Jean-Luc Picard, Starfleet Captain. Classically educated, Shakespeare quoting, analytical, meets the Tamarian captain, Dathon. The universal translator works. Every word is rendered accurately, and it means nothing, because the Tamarians don't communicate in syntax. They communicate entirely in mythological reference. Every statement is an allusion to a story. Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra doesn't parse as grammar, it references an event. And if you don't know the event, the words are sound. Same problem 4,000 years later. Two representatives of radically different cognitive architectures standing across from each other with nothing to bridge the gap, which means something has to create the bridge. In the Gilgamesh epic, the people of Iraq pray to the gods. They're exhausted by their king, brilliant, powerful, and utterly without an equal to check him. The gods respond by creating Enkidu as a counterweight. They don't introduce them diplomatically. Enkidu shows up in Gilgamesh's path and they fight in the street. That fight, two beings matched so precisely that neither can dominate the other, is what creates the brotherhood. You cannot forge that bond through conversation. It requires the collision. In Darmok, the Tamarians have been attempting diplomatic contact with the Federation for decades. Every attempt fails, not because of hostility, because the communication architecture is incompatible and no one has found the key. So Dathon makes a decision that looks from the outside as an act of aggression. He transports himself and Picard to the surface of El-Adrel IV. He knows there's a creature there. He brings the means to make fire. He brings two knives. He isn't kidnapping Picard. He's doing what the gods did for Gilgamesh, creating the conditions under which the only possible bridge can be built. The Tamarian High Command performs the function of the divine, not because they're gods, because they understand something the Federation doesn't yet, that some forms of understanding can only be earned through shared ordeal. They cannot be negotiated. They cannot be translated. They have to be lived. The institutional response, the Enterprise trying to retrieve Picard, the officers running calculations, the diplomatic protocols, is the equivalent of the people of Iraq trying to solve the Gilgamesh problem through petition and prayer before the gods intervened directly. The institution cannot create what the ordeal creates. There is a principle observable across every culture's literature. You do not truly know someone until you have faced something with them that neither of you could face alone. Not as philosophy, as operational fact. The bond formed under genuine shared threat is categorically different from any bond formed under comfortable circumstances.
How many of your friends have I killed?
And you killed 6 of my friends.
In their last moments, people show you who they really are. I knew your friends better than you ever did. Would you like to know which of them were cowards?
This is why Dathon brought them to El-Adrel IV. In the Gilgamesh epic, the bull of heaven is sent by the goddess Inanna. Furious that Gilgamesh rejected her advances, she goes to her father Anu and demands the weapon. The bull descends and begins killing the people of Iraq. Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight it together. They coordinate. They trust each other's timing. And they kill it together. In that moment, they stop being two separate men. Picard and Dathon face an invisible creature on a planet armed only with their intellect and the tools Dathon brought with him. Picard is gifted a weapon. Dathon is wounded early. They have to develop trust in real time, under lethal pressure, without a shared language. And watch what happens in the episode. The trust doesn't come from a conversation. It comes from a moment where Picard chooses to stay when he could have run and stands with a dying man beside a fire, reciting from the oldest story on Earth. Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra finally makes sense to Picard. Not because he looked it up, because he lived it. The struggle is the translator. This is the fourth beat, the final beat. This is the one that proves we're looking at deliberate astrotheological encoding, not surface level resemblance. After Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill the bull of heaven, they don't simply dispose of the body. Enkidu severs the bull's leg and hurls it into the sky in an act of direct defiance toward Inanna, who sent it. That severed leg becomes the constellation we still call Taurus. The bull that the gods used as a weapon against humanity is now fixed permanently in the night sky, not as a threat, but as a record. The story encoded in the stars, visible from anywhere on Earth. Every culture that looks up sees it. Now look at Darmok with this in mind. 2 captains, 2 starships. They descend from the sky to fight a monster on the ground. When it's over, Picard returns to the stars. The story of what happened on El-Adrel IV becomes part of the Tamarian mythological canon. Picard and Dathon at El-Adrel. A new phrase, a new constellation in their language. The geometry is identical. The monster is fought on the ground. The record of the fight goes into the sky. The stars become the library. Star Trek is set in space, not because space is the backdrop. Space is the sky, the ancient sky The same sky where the Sumerian astronomers fixed the bowl of heaven 4,000 years ago. The battlefield changed. The archive hasn't. This is not a coincidence produced by two writers, Lezebnik and Minosky, who happened to like mythology. This is the myth recognizing itself in the next available vessel and using it. How come this matters? Symbolic literacy, the ability to read the pattern underneath the story, it's becoming rare, not through malice, through the simple attrition of a culture that stopped transmitting the old texts and started assuming the new ones were self-explanatory. Most people who watch Darmok experience it correctly. They feel something. They can't always name what, but they rewatch it. They quote it. Shaka, when the walls fell. Sokath, his eyes open. The phrases enter the language because the episode is encoding something real. But they don't know they're quoting a tradition that traces back to clay tablets baked in the sun in ancient Mesopotamia. They don't know that the creature on El-Adrel IV is the bull of heaven. They don't know that Taurus is still up there, the leg of the bull frozen in the sky, right where Enkidu threw it. The writers of Darmok, Joe Minosky, Philip Lezebnik, and I think it was Rich Colby who directed, they either knew all of this, or they knew enough of it that the rest came through on its own. This was not an accident of inspiration. It was craft in service of the oldest available pattern. Picard recites the Epic of Gilgamesh to a dying man, and the dying man understands completely, because Dathon's entire language is built from moments exactly as this one. Two strangers, a fire, a monster. One of them doesn't make it home. That's the story. That's always been the story. Storytelling is repetitive. The question is, are you still listening?